Hey everybody, today
Hi
we're going
guys.
to be talking about anti-inflammation because inflammation is the root of all evil in our world. And so we're going to talk about a few different categories. Today's video is going to be about anti-inflammation in food because we love to talk
hmm
about nutrition. And of course, we have an excellent nutritionist here, so why not pick her brain on food and inflammation? So I'll briefly start by saying we always talk about the same things. And so we're going to try to bring up different topics
Yeah.
today. And the quickest answer to what is the most anti-inflammatory diet is what, Aubrey? The basic for anyone and everyone is
Paleo. Paleo.
paleo. Agreed.
And yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so if you don't know what paleo is, obviously go Google it. We're going to spend a lot of time. We're going to spend about 2 minutes talking about paleo.
Yeah.
So, Aubrey, you got 2 minutes to talk about paleo. Ready, set, go.
Okay. So, well, if you okay, well, now it's like on the spot. You're like, go, and you're like, "Ugh," it's like you vomit at the starting line, or you trip like in the sprints at the you like immediately fall. I like paleo, and I think it's gotten a lot of trend traction, meaning it's common. You hear the word paleo over and over and over again, and I think people view it as a trend. But I think what and it kind of is a trend, but these trends help us all be healthier. And it's a
Mhm.
trend that's not being like, hey, you should do something that's very toxic or straining on your body, like, hey, you should do keto or you should fast for 5 days. It's not a trend that's extreme. It's a trend that's
Right.
very attainable. I just think people don't do it right. I think when they hear paleo, they hear let's do Atkins kind of, let's do tons of meats and cheese it or not cheese, but tons of meats and not very many veggies and high fat. And that's actually a
American
very
paleo
American paleo is yeah, it's a
is
very
just
common.
carnivore,
It
eggs,
is.
bacon, and meat.
They're like, what do I eat? With no gluten. Basically, that you remove some of these foods that are the most inflammatory. Some of them that most of us can't tolerate, like gluten and dairy. I mean, 75% of the world is actually lactose intolerant. And gluten has been denatured and hybridized. So it's automatically a toxin to our body. Unless you live in Europe and you're eating ancient grain that's fermented and sprouted, then don't eat gluten. So you have foods that are removed because they're inflammatory and they're known for that. Basically, no matter who you are, I don't think you should be eating them. There are some health benefits to dairy if you get it right. That's a whole different discussion. But most people who are choosing to do paleo and reduce inflammation can't tolerate those foods. But then it also removes some foods that are relatively healthier if you can tolerate them, like grains and legumes. And
So
the
grains is
reason,
a big one that often confuses people. So
yeah,
just hit on that really quickly. Grains or anything, I think of it as stored in a silo.
yeah,
If it's farmed and can be stored in a silo, it's a grain.
right.
So corn, oats, rice,
Mm-hmm.
um, and then there's all
Wheat,
kinds of
barley,
plenty,
rye, millet, anything. Anything
right?
like that.
Anything that you can microwave in a in a pouch and it becomes
They're like,
soggy and delicious.
right. I know. Yum. Yeah, so grains, if you had organic sprouted whole grains where you're having all the fiber there, you have no pesticides, you have an intact gut, grains can be an addition to your diet if eaten correctly. But what happens is most people buy grains that are processed. They're in oatmeals and cereals and processed foods in the supermarket that have been denatured. They have hydrogenated oils, which cause oxidative stress. They have toxic chemicals like glyphosate and probably 200 other different chemicals, which are neurotoxins to your body. Those aren't healthy. And rarely are we getting a whole undenatured grain that are organic and that are good for us. So
Mhm.
the reason why I tell people to cut out grains is especially if you have inflammation, they break down in your body. They have things called like anti-nutrients. Basically, there's a
Mhm.
few chemicals like phytates, saponins, lectins. You've heard of them all, I'm sure, just little buzzwords. But
I don't
they're
think
meant
most people have heard of those. But it's just
Okay,
us
so sorry.
nerds.
Okay, I'm like you've heard of them, and so so what happens is those are defense mechanisms because grains and legumes and even nuts and seeds have these. They're meant to be digested, pooped out, and be able to replant. So if you think about that, try swallowing something that's meant to not be digested and absorbed. They inhibit our own enzymes. They wreak havoc in the intestines, and if you have inflammation already, chances are your intestinal barrier isn't intact. You probably don't have a nice, healthy mucosal lining. You probably do have inflammation down there. So when you add in grains, especially not properly prepared grains, now you're adding more inflammation, perpetuating immune responses, basically making your entire situation worse. So to wrap this up, because you said 2 minutes, it's never two
Yeah,
minutes.
2 minutes.
So, paleo removes those foods that sometimes are either relatively healthy, if you are a healthy individual, and healthy is relative, right? To help drastically reduce inflammation. The thing that you have
Mhm.
to do though is you have to make sure that you're getting 75% of your food as plants. So when you go into paleo, you're like, okay, I can't have grains or legumes. You can have nuts and seeds, but that's not what I want as a 75%. I had a patient ask me yesterday, he goes, what am I supposed to do when I don't have oatmeal anymore? What do I do for my breakfast? And I go, you see that fiber, identify what type of fiber if you can, right? Is it soluble or insoluble? There's multiple types of fiber, but just replace it with veggies. So whether if you have like a little bit of nuts and seeds, but get some like sweet potato and some sauteed greens and mushrooms and get a little bit of rainbow. You just do a 1-to-1 swap and then your plate is full again. And so I think it's difficult for people. And at least thankfully right now, paleo foods, they're everywhere. You can buy paleo granola, paleo oatmeal. You can get a non-dairy yogurt with paleo cereal on top of it. So
Okay, so that's perfect. Let's segue that. Actually, I'm
okay,
gonna take that point, but briefly say that we're putting together a nutritional course
we
that's going to
are.
be on our website for people to buy and
Yeah.
learn all about paleo and AIP and keto and
Yeah.
how to macro balance and all that stuff. So subscribe to our newsletter. We'll be sending out
Yeah.
emails when the nutrition course is published. It's really close. It'll be ready in a month or so
Yeah.
to learn way more about nutrition. But I want to make sure we pick apart this paleo muffin is still a muffin. And so
Yes.
people
Yeah.
can get tripped up because if you might be eating paleo, but paleo junk food is still junk food. And so I really want to talk about macro balancing. I really
Yeah.
think that's where people miss the boat. I was just speaking to someone last night about how they were on a health kick and started making this fruit smoothie. How it had an apple, a cucumber, a lemon, something else. But what was it missing, Aubrey?
Fat.
No fat.
Yeah, because what happens with people is that there's a lot of paleo junk food. So they go, what happens is you remove these foods that you're used to eating. And now, for ease of convenience, because you're unsure of what to eat and you're confused, you're going to go to something that's easily packaged, something that's going to on the go, paleo on the go, even, but more so the grocery store items that are like, yeah, here's my paleo crackers, here's my paleo muffins, paleo breakfast bars. But what happens now is like coconut sugar is allowed to be paleo, dates are paleo. So now you have these processed foods. They're still considered paleo, but they're high in carbohydrates. They are refined, even though technically paleo is not refined. The supermarket can get away with it, right? It's all about marketing.
Right,
And then now
right.
you're having an effect on your blood sugar, your insulin, your glucose, and that's all inflammatory response. So while the paleo diet is anti-inflammatory in itself, if you're having high carbohydrates and not macronutrient balancing, you're causing inflammation. So it's all about that balance. And with macronutrient balancing, you can track your food if you want to and kind of see. I like Chronometer, that app on your iPhone, just to look at a meal, go, am I
It's
macronutrient
free.
balancing?
It's
It's
free
free.
for
Yeah.
anyone.
Yeah.
Chronometer.com.
Yeah, we have no affiliation, but it's just nice because you can look at macronutrient balancing. But if you look at that, let's say you have a paleo muffin in the morning and a fruit smoothie, it's technically paleo. But all of a sudden now you have an excess of carbohydrates. You're putting your body into a sugar burning state. Your adrenals have to catch up because now they're dealing with the hormonal imbalance and the sugar surges. And now you have an inflammatory response. So for paleo, my suggestion is you can have those treats. I'd rather you have that instead of a donut. And I'd rather you have that instead of being
Mhm.
like, oh, screw paleo. I'm just going to go eat like a pancake. There's paleo pancakes, but we still have to
And they are
focus on,
delicious.
they are delicious, is figuring out that macronutrient balance. And if you look at your plate, at least if you can't track, make sure carbohydrates are a third or less of the plate. And make sure the other third is fat and the other third can be protein. And just look at your plate and understand, how am I eating? Is this too many carbs? Am I having a whole plate of sweet potato and just like one little piece of meat on top? It's most likely not balanced. But when you were talking about the fat with the smoothie, it's because it lets the sugar, which all carbohydrates turn to sugar, and 60% of protein turns to sugar. When you add fat to that, it slows down the release of that sugar to your bloodstream, and your adrenals can handle it better. Your liver can handle it better, and you're not going to have this wild inflammatory cascade. So,
My favorite thing that you taught me to
yeah,
add to the smoothie. So all of you fruit smoothie
yeah,
sugar bomb people out there, throw at least half an avocado
yeah.
in the smoothie. It sounds really weird, but trust Aubree, your nutritionist, that it is fine. It just makes
It
it
is.
creamy. Really doesn't have a
Yeah.
lot of taste. Even if the
No,
avocado is a little like brown and you wouldn't actually eat it,
blend
it
it.
still tastes fine in the
Yeah,
you
it
probably
does.
won't notice.
It does. And the good thing is that that can replace the creaminess for a banana. So instead of having
Hmm
60 carbohydrates of sugar, or it's probably 40, I just was exaggerating,
hmm
but people put 2 bananas in there. Now you have a healthy fat to slow that down, and it's anti-inflammatory, monounsaturated fats.
hmm
So
Another thing people commonly fall into in paleo and this macro balancing is, okay, so you've got a carb bomb and now you've converted it to a paleo carb bomb, and now we're telling you to add a fat to it, and great, now it's macro balanced, but you're still missing the vegetables. People
The
forget that
fiber.
if you fill up your brain is an excellent calorie counter. You don't need an app. Your
Mhm.
brain is an excellent calorie counter. If you eat eggs and bacon for breakfast, that's paleo.
Yeah.
That's so many calories that your body is not really going to be that hungry for lunch, and it's probably, depending on how much you eat, maybe
Mhm.
even less hungry for dinner. So you have to make sure to eat your vegetables first, as your
Right.
mother told you, because once your appetite is full, you start to have less appetite and
Mhm.
less pizzazz to eat those vegetables. So if you fill up on high density foods, you're just not going to have the appetite for vegetables. And so we want people to aim for 9 cups
9
of
cups.
vegetables. 9 cups.
9.
That's a
And
lot.
yeah, and people commonly go like, "How am I supposed to get full of vegetables?" But the fiber, there's different types of fiber. There's insoluble and soluble fiber. Soluble kind of like dissolves into water like a gel-like substance, and it's kind of helps slow down bowel movements. If you think of soluble, slow, insoluble, go. And insoluble is non-digestible and actually can help move through your colon. So it helps it go, produce bowel movements. Both of those, you need at least 38 grams of fiber a day, in my opinion. I would aim for 50 if you can. But the
Hmm.
more fiber that you get, it's fiber is very similar to fat that it actually increases satiety. So, is that how you say it? Satiety?
Hmm.
You feel satiated, you feel full.
Yeah.
But the more fiber you have, it actually triggers it. It tells your hunger response that, hey, I'm not hungry anymore. But you can eat more of it, and the more veggies you eat, it's funny. You're everyone's so nervous about eating too much food, but the more veggies you eat, you can actually normalize a weight, and you get more
Hmm.
polyphenols, and you get more things like quercetin and lutein, and all these lycopene, and all these great kind of phytonutrients that are required for every function in our body. So when you eat more veggies, you feel fuller, you help with bowel movements, you help your skin, hair, every part of your body. So trying to stick on
And
some
so if you're going to
vanity
make that
things.
sugar bomb with apples or whatnot in the morning, great. Take a huge handful of spinach or kale or something
Hmm.
and throw it in that smoothie, and that'll knock out 2 or 3 cups of your vegetables right there. Because if you think about it, 9 cups is a lot. That means 3 cups for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Hmm.
So if you
Yeah.
just ate eggs and bacon for breakfast, guess what? Now you
I
have
know.
4.5 cups at lunch and 4.5 cups at dinner.
Yeah.
You've got to throw vegetables into your eggs. If you're going to do that, that's
Yeah.
fine. Then saute up, as you said, some onions and bell peppers, or somehow get those prebiotic
Mushrooms,
foods into
grains.
your eggs.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I think one of the biggest things that we need to make people realize is that if you're doing an anti-inflammatory diet and you're not having veggies and 75% in a rainbow, it's an inflammatory diet, in my opinion. Because now you're
Mhm.
just having meats and fats. And you need
Mhm.
the broad spectrum of veggies and different phytonutrients.
Your
So,
microbiome is the most anti-inflammatory thing you can feed in your body,
hmm,
and they thrive off of vegetables. They do not thrive off of paleo muffins, and they do
yeah.
not thrive off of carbs and sugar.
No, the only way to grow your beneficial bacteria is fiber.
Hmm.
Fiber.
You don't eat it; they eat it. You
They
eat
do,
it for
yeah.
them.
And they ferment it, and that's how they grow and multiply. And they're responsible for our immune response too. So tying it back into COVID of what you just talked about, they're
Hmm.
immune modulators. So if you can
Hmm.
increase the variety and abundance of bacteria, beneficial bacteria microbiome by eating fiber, you're helping your immune system, your nervous system, even insulin response, everything you can think of. So
So you vote for your microbiome 3 times a day. If
yes.
you eat carbs and sugar, you're voting for candida and
Hmm.
fungus. If you eat fiber and vegetables, you're voting for a healthy microbiome. So you
Yeah.
choose which kind of microbiome you want to create every day.
And your microbiome can change in as little as 72 hours. So if you don't eat veggies for 72 hours, you are decreasing that beneficial bacteria. But on a positive note, if you make a change just by adding more vegetables, within 3 days, you're already making a positive change with your body. It doesn't take months. Yeah, there's tons of factors, but you can just make
Right.
right. But you can make that much of a positive impact in 72 hours just by adding fiber daily. It's huge.
Hmm.
So, okay,
And
kept
last but not
under
least,
2 minutes.
That was definitely not 2 minutes. But last but not least, I want to make sure we mention the microwave, and we want to steer people
Yes.
away from the microwave as much as possible.
Yes.
Heat your food on the stove or heat your food in the oven. The microwave is very damaging to your food. It actually makes carcinogens. It damages the nutrients in your food. And the way to understand it is that the way a microwave heats food is it superheats or supercharges pieces or small molecules in the food, and that supercharged heat then disperses around and heats up the rest of the food. But that area that it's supercharged, the area that it's superheated, actually destroyed the nutrients. So your food actually has less nutrition after you microwave it. So if you're going to eat the vegetables, then you want to get as much of the nutrients out of those vegetables. So stop microwaving it, put it on the stove, reheat it. I know it's a lot more work to do that way, but your body will thank you. You can't get something that quick for nothing. So don't cook your food in the microwave. Don't heat up your bag of rice in the microwave. Don't steam your broccoli in the microwave. Put it on the stove. Eat it the good old fashioned way, the paleo way.
And then you have more of a relationship with your food too. You're understanding what you're eating. It's
The relationship
silly, but
with your food. Yes.
you need to have a relationship with food and what you're putting in your body.
Talk to it.
I love you so much. But like it helps get your brain online
This is
for
sick. Then you eat
digestion.
it. Like you love them, you talk to them, and then you eat them. You destroy them.
That's the
okay.
argument for eating animals that people throw at me. But okay.
Okay. Love your food. Have a relationship with your
Yes.
food.
Yes. And then you eat
Eat
it.
them. And on that note, like our channel, follow us on YouTube, subscribe, and of course, hit up our newsletter so that when our nutrition course is published, you'll see all of Aubree talking about all the different food plans out there, how to macro balance, because there's tons and tons of stuff we want to talk to you about, but obviously don't have the time in this episode. So check it out.
Cool.
All right, we'll see you all next
Bye,
time.
guys.